Handcuffed and helpless, husband's twisted revenge after catching wife with her lover. So yeah. I'm here because I need to get this off my chest. Not looking for sympathy, just gotta put this somewhere before I lose my mind. I'm Daniel, 34. Been married to Emily, 32 for 8 years. Thought we had a solid marriage. Turns out I was a complete idiot. It all started a month ago. I came home early from a work trip, was supposed to be gone another 2 days, but my meetings got cancelled. Didn't tell Emily. Thought I'd surprise her. Worst decision of my life. I walk in, and the first thing I notice? The house smells off. Not bad, just different. Like sweat and perfume, but not Emily's. Then I hear something from upstairs. My stomach drops. I head up and my bedroom door is half open. I push it and there they are. Emily. And some dude. In my bed. I freeze. My brain just stops working. Like, this can't be real. She's laughing at something he said, all cozy under my blankets, her hair messy in that way I used to love after a night together. Then she sees me. The look on her face? Panic. Full body deer in the headlights panic. The dude? He jumps up, fumbling to cover himself like a guilty little kid caught stealing candy. Daniel? She stammers, scrambling to grab the sheet. I don't say anything. Just stare. A million things are running through my head, but all I can focus on is the nightstand. My wedding picture is face down. That's what does it. That's what breaks me. I start laughing. A quiet, bitter, hollow laugh. She's saying something, her voice shaky, but I'm not listening. Instead, I step out and calmly walk to the closet. They're watching me, probably wondering if I'm about to grab a baseball bat or something. I don't. Instead, I pull out a set of handcuffs. Yeah, I own handcuffs. Long story, but let's just say Emily liked some adventurous stuff in the past. I turn around and toss them on the bed. Put them on, I say. They just stare. You heard me. Put them on. Emily starts crying, and the dude, let's call him Mark, because that's apparently his name, tries to reason with me. Man, listen, let's just talk about this. I pull out my revolver from the nightstand drawer and snap it open, showing the empty chamber. I grab a single bullet, slowly slide it in, and snap it shut. Emily screams. What are you doing? Put on the cuffs, I repeat, my voice calm. Or I'll make things a whole lot worse. Mark doesn't hesitate. He locks one wrist in immediately, fumbling to cuff the other. Emily's sobbing now, begging me to stop, listen, forgive, all the things I never thought I'd hear from her. I step back and sit in the chair across from the bed, gun resting on my knee. Now, I say, spinning the revolver cylinder, letting the metallic click-click-click fill the room. Let's talk. So there they were. Handcuffed to my bed. Emily was sobbing, her eyes darting between me and the gun in my hand. Mark? He was breathing hard, trying to keep it together. He looked like the type of guy who had never been in a real fight before. I leaned back in my chair, spinning the cylinder of my revolver, letting that metallic click-click-click echo in the room. All right, I said. Let's start with the basics. How long? Emily sniffled. Daniel, please. I slammed the gun on the nightstand and she jumped. How long? A few months. I let that sit for a second. A few months, I repeated, nodding slowly. Oh wow. That's a long time to be lying to my face. She started crying harder. Mark cleared his throat, looking like he wanted to say something. I turned to him. How'd it start? He hesitated. So I raised the gun and pointed it right at his knee. A talk. Jesus, man. Look, it just happened, okay? We met at the gym, we got to talking, one thing led to another. I chuckled. Cold. Bitter. The gym, huh? That's rich. Emily, isn't that where you said you were working on yourself? She closed her eyes, shaking. You know, I said, standing up, pacing a little. I used to think I was a pretty good husband. I worked hard, never let you go without. I thought we had a great life. Emily tried to wipe her tears on her shoulder, her wrists tugging against the cuffs. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered. I stopped. Turned back to her. Stared. You didn't mean for this to happen? I repeated, tilting my head. You tripped and fell onto his D. I cut myself off. Is that what you're telling me? She squeezed her eyes shut, shaking her head. Mark jumped in. Big mistake. Man, listen, this isn't the way to handle it. I get you're mad, but... Click. I pointed the gun right at his head and pulled the hammer back. The sound it made? That sharp metallic click? I've never seen a man turn so pale so fast. Emily started screaming. I let it hang there for a second before I finally smirked and flipped the safety back on. Relax, I muttered, lowering the gun. If I wanted you dead, you'd already be in the ground. Mark exhaled sharply, probably realizing he just almost pissed himself. I sat back down, sighing, rubbing my temples. You know, I muttered, almost to myself. For a second, I thought about ending it. Just grabbing this gun and taking the easy way out. Emily snapped her head up. No. Daniel, don't say that. Please, I held up a hand. But then I thought, nah. I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. There are so many more fun ways to handle this. She froze. Mark swallowed hard. What does that mean? I leaned back in my chair, spinning the loaded cylinder of my revolver. Click, click, click. It was time to start the real game. The room was dead silent except for the sound of the revolver cylinder spinning in my hand. Emily was still sniffling, her body shaking like a leaf. Mark? He was stiff as a board, breathing shallow like he was trying to make himself invisible. I let the silence hang for a second. Then, I held up the revolver and popped the cylinder open. Emily sucked in a sharp breath when she saw the single bullet inside. Why you don't have to do this, she choked out. I ignored her. 6 chambers, I muttered. 1 bullet. I spun the cylinder again, watching it blur before I snapped it shut with a flick of my wrist. You ever played Russian roulette, Mark? His face went pale. What? No, man, listen, please. I pointed the revolver at his foot. Let's play. Oh my God, Daniel, stop. Emily screamed. Mark started thrashing in his cuffs. Dude, come on, this is insane. I just grinned, taking my time, letting the tension build. Then, ever so slowly, I tilted the barrel up and pressed it against my own temple. Emily let out a choked sob. Mark froze. I stared right at them, feeling that cold steel against my skin. Do you know, I said, voice steady, for the past 10 minutes, I've been trying to figure out why I shouldn't just pull this trigger and be done with it. Emily lost it, shaking her head violently. No, 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 Daniel, please. I love you. I made a mistake. I laughed. Loud. Harsh. The love? I repeated. Nah. Love doesn't stab you in the back. Love doesn't sneak around and lie for months. Emily whimpered, pulling at the cuffs. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. I arched an eyebrow. Oh? And how was it supposed to happen, Emily? She had no answer. Mark, finally finding his courage, spoke up. Look, man, he said, licking his lips, eyes darting between me and the gun. You don't gotta do this. You're better than this, all right? I just smirked. Better? I muttered. You're right. Then I lowered the gun from my temple and pointed it at Emily. The way she screamed? You would have thought I'd already pulled the trigger. Daniel, please. Oh God, please. She thrashed against the cuffs so hard I thought she might break her wrists. Mark lost it too. What the hell, man? Stop. This isn't funny. I tilted my head. No, it's not? I asked, feigning innocence. Because you two were laughing just fine before I got home. Emily kept sobbing, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I leaned in, pressing the barrel lightly under her chin. I'll ask one last time, I whispered. How long? She broke. I have 5 months, she sobbed. It's been 5 months, Daniel. Please. I didn't mean for it to happen, I swear. I love you. I love you. I was just lonely, Anne. I pulled the gun back, staring at her. Lonely. Lonely. Like I hadn't worked my ass off every damn day to give her a good life. Like I hadn't always been there when she needed me. Like I hadn't loved her with everything I had. I exhaled slowly. Then I smiled. You know what? I muttered, shaking my head. I'm tired of this game. Mark visibly relaxed. Emily broke down into ugly sobs. Then I stood up and did something that made them both pause in confusion. I grabbed my phone and snapped a picture. Mark blinked. What the hell are you doing? I grinned at them, waving my phone. Insurance, I said simply. In case either of you gets any bright ideas about spinning this in your favor later. Emily looked horrified. Daniel, please don't. Yo, don't worry, I cut her off. I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm not a criminal like some people. I turned to Mark, cold and calm. But you? You're about to lose everything. And just like that, the real revenge began. Emily was hyperventilating, still pulling at the cuffs, her wrists red from struggling. Mark? He was silent now, but his eyes were darting around, like he was trying to figure a way out. I just stood there, phone in hand, staring at the picture I'd taken. Emily and Mark. Handcuffed to my bed. Half naked. Terrified. Perfect. I looked up and gave them a slow smile. Now, here's how this is gonna go, I said. Neither of them spoke. They just stared, waiting. I took my time scrolling through my contacts. Then, deliberately, I turned my phone around so they could see. Mark's face drained of color. Emily gasped. Because right there, on my screen, was Mark's wife's phone number. That's right. The idiot wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was married too. Emily whipped her head toward him. You said. Shut up, Emily, Mark snapped, his voice tight with panic. I smirked. No, you didn't tell her? I let out a mock gasp. You mean to tell me you lied to my wife too? I'm shocked. Emily's eyes widened in horror. You said you were single. Mark clenched his jaw. Hey, Emily, not now. I raised an eyebrow. Go, not now? Why? Because now there are consequences? I clicked on his wife's number and hovered my thumb over the dial button. Mark lost it. Daniel, please don't. He jerked at the cuffs so hard that the whole bed creaked. Emily, still stuck on the realization, turned to him with wide eyes. You're married? Mark ignored her, staring only at me. Man, listen, I screwed up, all right? But don't do this. Please. You don't understand, she'll take my kids, she'll take everything. I just smiled. Oh, Marky, I said softly. You mean, kinda like how you took everything from me? His mouth opened, then shut. He had nothing to say. Emily turned back to me, desperate now. Daniel, please, she begged. You're better than this. I know you're angry, but please don't ruin lives. I snapped my head toward her. Don't ruin lives? I repeated, my voice low and sharp. So it's only bad when I do it? She flinched. Mark tried one last time. Daniel, listen, we can talk about this. I can make it right. Just please. I held up a finger, cutting him off. Then I pressed the call button. Mark screamed. Emily gasped. And as the phone rang, I just stood there, letting the reality sink in. This was just the beginning. The phone rang once. Twice. Mark was thrashing so hard against the cuffs that the bed frame started creaking. Daniel, please. Please. I'll do anything, man, just hang up the... Click. A woman's voice. Tired. Confused. Hello? Mark went completely still. I smiled. Hi, Claire. Emily sucked in a breath. Mark looked like he was about to pass out. There was a pause. Who is this? I kept my voice calm steady. My name's Daniel. I think you should know that your husband, Mark, has been sleeping with my wife for the last 5 months. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. What? I turned my phone's camera around, making sure Mark and Emily were in full view. Then, with one click, I switched to video call. Claire's face popped up. Messy blonde hair, dark circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted, like someone who had spent years trying to make a failing marriage work. I flipped the camera. And she saw them. Mark, half-naked, handcuffed to the bed. Emily, wrapped in my sheets, looking like a deer caught in headlights. There was a long, dead silence. Then Claire whispered one word. Mark? Mark lost it. Babe, listen, it's not. Click. I hung up. Mark's entire body sagged like someone had just sucked the life out of him. His head dropped, eyes staring at nothing. Emily? She was crying so hard that she could barely breathe. Daniel, she hiccuped. You didn't have to do that. I turned to her slowly. I didn't? I echoed. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I overstep? Kinda like how you overstepped into my bed with another man? She sobbed harder. You're destroying everything. I just laughed. No, Emily, I muttered. You destroyed everything. I'm just cleaning up the mess. I turned my attention back to Mark. He still wasn't moving. Mark? I called, tilting my head. Oh, buddy? You look a little lost. He didn't answer. I smirked. You should check your phone. I'm sure Claire's got plenty to say to you. Mark's breathing was uneven, his face drained of all color. Then, like a man realizing his entire life was about to collapse, he slowly turned to Emily. And for the first time that night, he didn't look scared. He looked furious. This is your fault, he hissed. Emily flinched. What? Mark jerked against the cuffs, veins popping in his neck. I had a life, Emily. A wife. A family. And now it's all gone. Emily shook her head rapidly. No. No, Mark, don't turn this on me. But he wasn't listening. You just had to keep pushing, huh? He sneered. I kept saying how special I made you feel, how trapped you were in your boring little marriage. Emily gasped, her face crumpling. I never. Mark laughed bitterly. Oh, give me a break. You loved the attention. Loved sneaking around. Loved feeling like the forbidden fruit. He spit the words like they disgusted him. And now look where we are. Emily started crying again. I just watched, amused. Funny. Just minutes ago they were partners in crime. Now? They were turning on each other like rats in a sinking ship. I turned back to Mark. Don't worry, I said cheerfully. You'll have plenty of time to think about your mistakes. Alone. His eyes flickered to me. What? I grinned. Oh, buddy. You didn't think I was done, did you? Mark was staring at me, his breath coming in sharp, uneven bursts. Emily? She was still crying, but now she wasn't looking at Mark anymore. She was terrified of me. Good. I stretched my arms and checked my phone again. Yup. Claire had already started. Text after text, all caps, pure rage. You cheating piece of garbage. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Don't bother coming home. The kids know. You're dead to them. I'm calling a lawyer first thing tomorrow. I grinned and turned the screen toward Mark. Looks like wifey's pissed. Mark let out a low, shaky breath, his entire body defeated. He didn't even try to respond. Emily turned to me, pleading. Daniel, please, she begged, her wrists tugging weakly against the cuffs. I get that you're hurt, but this isn't you. You're not a bad person. You don't have to do this. I sighed and ran a hand through my hair. Emily. She snapped her mouth shut. I gave her a mocking smile. Would you prefer if I just let this go? Forgive you? Be the nice guy and let you both walk away? She nodded frantically. Yes. Yes, that's exactly what I want. I leaned in closer, voice dropping to a whisper. Then you should have thought about that before you *ed him in my bed, ***. She flinched hard, fresh tears spilling down her face. Mark let out a low groan. All right, man, all right. You got your revenge. Can we just end this? I raised an eyebrow. No, we're just getting started. And then, I went for the kill. I tapped my phone again. This time? I sent the pictures to Emily's parents. Emily screamed. No! Daniel, please, she thrashed violently against the cuffs, pure hysteria in her voice. Too late. I watched the little delivered icon pop up and smiled. Oh, I'm sorry, I said, mocking her own words from earlier. I didn't have to do that? Her body shook with sobs. You're ruining my life. I let out a harsh laugh. Your life? Emily, I lost my wife, my best friend, and my dignity all in one night. And you want to talk about your life? She couldn't answer. Mark stared at me, eyes dark. You're a real piece of work, man. I grinned. Oh, buddy. You haven't seen anything yet. Then, I uncuffed him first. Mark rubbed his wrists, looking at me suspiciously. That's it? I shrugged. Yeah. You're free to go. He didn't move. Emily whispered, wait, what about me? I turned to her. Oh, honey. I reached for my phone again, clicking one final contact. The screen lit up. Boss, corporate office. Emily stopped breathing. She knew exactly what this meant. I smiled. You? You're gonna stay right there while I make this call. Mark was rubbing his wrists, staring at me like he wasn't sure whether to run or swing. But he wasn't my concern anymore. Emily? She was hyperventilating. Her eyes were locked on my phone screen. Boss, corporate office. Her lips trembled. Daniel, please don't. I tilted my head. Why not? She was shaking now. You know what'll happen. My job, my entire career, I worked so hard. I smiled. Yeah? Kinda like how I worked hard for this marriage. Her face crumpled. Mark muttered, Jesus Christ, man. I ignored him and pressed the call button. Emily screamed. No! Daniel, please, I'm begging you. She thrashed against the cuffs, wild and desperate. I just held the phone to my ear and waited. 1 ring. 2. Then click. A deep voice answered. Hello? I smiled. Hey, Mr. Callahan. It's Daniel. Sorry to call so late, but I think there's something you should know about your lead project manager. Emily was sobbing violently now. Daniel, she whimpered. Please. Don't do this. I'll do anything. I met her tear-soaked eyes. Oh, sweetheart, I whispered. You already did. And then I started talking. The moment I started talking, Emily lost her mind. She was sobbing, shaking, trying to scream over me. Daniel, stop. Oh God, please stop. But I just kept talking. Yeah, Mr. Callahan, I said, calm and steady. I thought you should know that Emily has been conducting herself in a way that might not reflect well on the company. Specifically, she's been using company trips as an excuse to have an ongoing affair with a married man, no less. Emily howled, her whole body thrashing against the cuffs. Daniel, please. Please, I'll do anything, just hang up. Mark was just standing there, frozen, looking between us like he couldn't believe this was happening. Mr. Callahan let out a low sigh. That's a serious accusation, Daniel. It is, I said, smirking at Emily's absolute breakdown. But I have proof. I hit my camera roll and scrolled to the photos. Emily, handcuffed to the bed, tangled in sheets, her makeup smudged from crying. Mark half naked beside her, looking guilty as hell. I pressed send. Emily's entire body seized up. No, she screamed, so raw it almost didn't sound human. Then silence. I heard Mr. Callahan's phone ding. Then a pause. Then a sharp inhale. Jesus Christ. I smiled. Yeah. I thought you'd want to see that before making any decisions about her future at the company. Emily's head snapped back up, eyes bloodshot. Daniel, please. My job is everything. I just shrugged. Not anymore. Mr. Callahan cleared his throat. I'll be handling this first thing in the morning. Glad to hear it, I said, locking eyes with Emily. And just so you know, she used the company card to book a hotel room for at least one of their little meetups. I can send those records too. Emily screamed. Mr. Callahan's tone went ice cold. I understood. Then click. The line went dead. I turned back to Emily, tucking my phone away. She was just staring at me, completely broken. Her job? Gone. Her reputation? Destroyed. Her precious career? Up in flames. She didn't even cry anymore. Just sat there, shaking, her face pale. I smiled. You deserve every bit of this. Mark, who had been quiet this whole time, finally found his voice. You're insane. I turned to him, my grin widening. Oh, Mark, I muttered. We haven't even gotten to you yet. Mark had been watching the whole thing go down like a man watching his own funeral. He saw Emily break. He saw her career go up in flames. And now? It was his turn. I turned to him slowly. You thought I forgot about you, huh? Mark swallowed hard. Look, man. I held up a hand. Esha. He shut up immediately. I pulled out my phone again, scrolling through my messages. And there it was, Claire's last text. You're dead to me. The divorce papers will be ready by Monday. I want full custody. You'll never see your kids again. I turned the screen toward him. Mark stared at it, his face going slack. His whole body looked like it caved in on itself. My kids, he whispered. She can't do that. I smiled. But she can. He looked up at me, his eyes wild now. You don't understand, man, she's everything to me. They're everything to me. I tilted my head. They were. Mark flinched like I'd punched him. Emily, still sniffling, finally looked at him. You told me you were single. Mark snapped his head toward her, eyes burning. And you told me you were happy in your marriage. Emily's face fell. Mark laughed bitterly. Look where that got us. They were turning on each other again. And I? I was just enjoying the show. I leaned against the dresser, arms crossed, watching as Mark and Emily ripped each other apart. Mark spat, You practically begged me to be with you. Emily fired back, And you let me believe you were the perfect guy. You ruined my life. You ruined mine first. I clapped my hands together. Okay, that's enough. No need to fight. They both snapped their heads toward me. I grinned. Because you both lost. Emily let out a shaky breath. Mark's jaw ticked. I grabbed my jacket, my keys, and headed for the door. Emily panicked. Wait, Daniel, where are you going? I smirked. Bout. Mark narrowed his eyes. You're just gonna leave us here? I stopped at the doorway and turned back. Then, with one final smirk, I tossed the handcuff key onto the floor. It landed just out of reach. Have fun, I said. And then, I walked out the door. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. Behind me? Emily and Mark were still cuffed to the bed. Screaming at each other. Blaming each other. I let the door slam shut, cutting off their voices. And for the first time in months, I felt free. The fallout. The next day? Oh, it was glorious. Emily lost her job. Mr. Callahan didn't even wait until Monday, he had her fired on the spot. I heard she tried to beg, even threatened to sue, but after I sent him the company card receipts? She was done. Mark? Claire kicked him out. Filed for divorce immediately. She got the house, the car, and was fighting for full custody. And from what I heard, the courts were leaning in her favor. The best part? Claire and I met up a week later. Not for revenge, not to plot anything, just to talk. She told me she always had suspicions about Mark but never had proof. She thanked me for exposing him before she wasted another decade of her life. And you know what? She was actually great. We grabbed coffee again. And again. And then dinner. And now? Let's just say, Mark might have lost his wife. But I think I just found someone better. Final thoughts. To anyone reading this, if you ever find yourself betrayed like I was, don't just sulk in the pain. Rise from it. I didn't destroy Emily and Mark out of spite. I did it because they deserved it. Because people like them don't get to walk away without consequences. And now? I'm happier than ever. So thanks for coming along for the ride. And if you ever catch your partner cheating, make them pay.